Lesson 1, we talked about structure, but that won't be enough for you to tell better stories. I hear the word story thrown around a lot in my meetings with teams, but I feel like it's used more as a buzzword than an actual strategy. My sense is there's some reluctance or even an allergy to telling an actual story with characters and stakes or something happening. I've heard every excuse, one of my favorites being, "This is too squishy, you know who you are." I'll respond this way.
Another data misconception. Data never speaks for itself. There's this term, neural coupling, which says, as the listener, your brain will light up exactly as mine as the storyteller. It mirrors this activity as though you are actually experiencing these things. Storytelling gives you this artificial reality. If I talk to you about like walking through the snow, and with each step, the snow is crunching under my shoes, and big wet flakes are falling on my cheeks, your brains are now lighting up as though you are walking through the snow and experiencing these things. As you listen to stories, you automatically gain empathy for the storyteller. The more empathy you experience, the more oxytocin is released in your brain. Oxytocin is the feel-good chemical, and the more oxytocin you have, the more trustworthy you actually view the speaker. This is why storytelling is such a critical skill for a leader, because the very act of telling a story makes people trust you more.
Stories are a direct path, not indirect and not a squishy path, to trust and an emotional response. And Marketing 101 tells us consumers purchase based off emotion rather than data. So embrace the squish, I guess? Okay, pop quiz. Watch this video and tell me why it's funny.
Let's hear from the top, every detail.
I think the best way to tell a story is by starting at the end, briefly, then going back to the beginning, and then periodically returning to the end, maybe giving different characters perspectives throughout, just to give it a bit of dynamism. Otherwise, it's just sort of a linear story.
Just tell us what happened.
All right, well, I lost a bunch of money from some people, and now they want it back.
This is funny because it spoofs the dichotomy between the Greek method and the cold open. Will Ferrell is the Greek method, he just wants the linear story. The other character, and sorry sir, I don't know your name, he's the cold open. The way he thinks is best to tell the story isn't the way Will Ferrell's character wants to hear it. This is the fight my brain has every time I sit down to write. How am I going to begin? Do I bend completely to the will of the audience, assuming I know them and how they like to receive information? Or do I go with a different style, gambling that something different might stick with them better than what they're used to? Do I start with a story? If so, what kind? Parallel, direct, something new? Or do I start with a structure and build the story around it? Which story? Which structure? If you have not asked yourself these questions, there's a good chance you're leaving a huge imprint in the couch of your default communication style. It's time to get up and stretch your legs. So who are you? Are you Greek method Will Ferrell or cold open other guy? These are decisions you should be wrestling with. We all have default communication styles. You have choices to make. At the same time, yes, telling a story is the starting point, but a better story, a good story, is the goal.
Hi.
You know, if we held that FedEx office printer presentation, they could have shipped it too. Save ourselves the hassle.
I'm not too sure about this.
Right. Never kick off with sales figures.
Kicking off with sales figures.
I'm yawning some more. And...
I see your point.
Yeah.
We understand.
So what makes a good story? In terms of a Storified finalist conversation, I'm breaking down the principles of a good story like this: structure. And we introduced that in lesson 1. Here in this video, I'm going to further break down the body or argument sections. Then we have the 3 C's: themes and memes, and rhetorical devices. In this video, I will not be covering rhetorical devices. That's a great topic after we've built a strong foundation. First, let's figure out the body and argument sections and address the organizing principle. Here's what I mean. This is the most crucial section because this is where the story, tension, entertainment value will dip. You've probably hit the 10-minute rule by now, so you need to reset the clock. Lean on the theme and meme here. I see two ways to organize stories, chronologically and blocks. I have a hard time imagining how one might organize cyber, property, casualty, analytics into a chronological order. Unless you're doing a detective story and you do a kind of play-by-play to get to the grand reveal that Marsh is the digitally enabled broker for your future. It's totally possible this can work. I don't see it, but what do I know? I'm just the voice in your headphones. Otherwise, use blocks with clear transitions, blocks that utilize the Greek or cold open structures to have compelling dialogues about cyber, then property, etc., etc. So did you hear that? The blocks are an opportunity to tell a story within a story. Use either the Greek style or cold open to introduce each topic. Now we're going to talk about property. You had a claim last year that did X, Y, and Z. That's the Greek style. Cold open might be something like, Gina's modernization is much like the opportunity in front of the property program. Here's how. So that's the hook and bridge right there, covered in about, 15 words? So in the end, you're not giving a 60-minute presentation. You're giving multiple 10-minute presentations. This will make such a smooth order to things. Danger ahead. In my experience, this is where the wheels fall off of a deck. Keep the slides simple. Be Steve Jobs. Do his slides. He was the founder of Pixar, yet his slides were so viewer-friendly. Go watch David J.P. Phillips' Death by PowerPoint TED Talk if you haven't already. I've linked to it in the description of this video. It's about 15 minutes. If you're crunched for time, you can watch my condensed version coming in hot at 2 minutes. You might get a kick out of that one. Next up, the 3 C's. You have the two structures to work with. Within the hook and narrative sections, you have what I call the moving parts, and those are the 3 C's. Moving because they don't need to be delivered in the order I deliver them to you now. They don't need to be equal sizes, and they don't have to be, or shouldn't be, the same proportions from project to project. They're moving. The 3 C's are change, character, clarity. Change is a seismic shift or otherwise thing that keeps our client or prospect up at night. Here's what Robert McKee says in Storynomics. In what grabs attention? Change. As long as conditions remain secure and constant, we pursue the business of life. But come change, and we're suddenly under the threat or surprised by good luck. In either case, we react. Subconscious survival systems kick into gear. Chief among them, story making. Change in the Gina story is, you could say, time, specifically keeping up or not with the times. Character is just like it sounds. First, second, or third person. Are you telling a parallel story or a direct story? If parallel, the characters could be made up, fictional, or first person if your experience is analogous to theirs. If direct, it's their story, so second person. Pro tip for character, cast the client or prospect as an underdog. Most people see themselves or connect with David, not Goliath. For example, in lesson 1, I told you a story about Gina. You might have noticed Gina was a senior engineer but positioned as an underdog. That was intentional. Everyone roots for and sees themselves as underdogs. Pro tip number 2, give the character a name. The listener of your story will create an identity around that name. All of a sudden, Gina has this type of hair, she wears glasses, has this color eyes. The character can be anything, even a giraffe if you're so inclined. But you'll need to connect the giraffe to the meaning, the clarity. Clarity is the meaning of the story, the lesson, the moral. What is the point you're trying to make with this story? Clarity is not the solution Marsh can provide. Clarity is not Marsh analytics. Clarity is the moral of the story you are telling. This area, clarity, is a goldmine for memes in terms of phrase. What's the moral of the Gina story? High-level moral is don't slip, don't lose focus, see the future, just off the top of my head. You could hone in as you develop the theme. I emphasize the 3 C's for a reason. I use PipDecks Storyteller Tactics by Steve Rawling, a former journalist. He says this: a good story has strong visual scenes conjured up by your words alone. Every important communication needs at least one scene. So, when you've written a blog post, an email, or a strategy document, sit back and think, what would I point a camera at? If the answer is nothing, then we can't see what you mean. Sadly, we won't remember what you said. 2 other things. First, you need to come up with a theme for the presentation. Without a theme, the presentation will lack context and possibly clarity. Example, I've been pushing the theme Every Hero Needs a Guide. It sets up a great void the hero needs filled. Obviously, Marsh is the guide and fills the void. Otherwise, the theme should be simple. We're trying to make these stories human, so I encourage you to avoid insurance speak with your theme. Second, you need a meme. What is a meme?
Duh. Winning.
You probably know it as a Nicolas Cage picture with a funny headline floating around Twitter. According to authors Jay and Jeannie Levinson, a meme is a self-explanatory symbol that uses words, actions, sound, or a picture to communicate an entire idea. It is the essence of simplicity, easily understandable in a matter of seconds. Think of a street sign. Why do you need a meme? Because a meme does the heavy lifting of persuasion. You don't need to stand there and beg for their business. A meme plants a seed so you can move on. It's catchy, a mind virus. It can conveys why a prospect should buy from you and not a competitor. It triggers emotional response and generates desire. Think of the bell for Pavlov's dog or the seatbelt sign on a plane. You hear the ding and you are conditioned to respond. A textual example could be a campaign slogan. New Jersey and you, perfect together, from Tom Kane's campaigns in the 80s. I still remember it. But it's brilliant because the more you use a meme, the stronger it becomes. There is a difference between the theme and meme. The theme could be, I'm going to save you money. And the meme could be, cha-ching. Say cha-ching after every value proposition. Corny, I know you probably won't do that, but you get the idea. There's more to say here, but I'm going to move on in the interest of keeping this video reasonably short. Alright, here's the deal. Lesson 2 is done. And look, I know, you might be feeling like this woman here, walking down a flooded path, skin tingling by the breeze of an oncoming wave. You're uncertain, confused, you have questions. The first probably being,
Who the heck are you?
all of this is fair. First, my name's Ken. I was a journalist, a professor. I'm a married father of 2, which means
every light in the house is on.
But what you're feeling is fair. In these 2 videos, totaling what, 22 minutes, I have covered about 5 to 7 weeks in one of my semesters. Each item I've addressed here could have been and probably was a class unto itself. These videos are not intended to make you an expert. They are intended to get you started, to get you to the training with some questions and talking points. I promise it will come together, and I can make this promise because I saw it happen semester after semester for years while I was teaching this very subject. And when it does come together, you're going to feel pretty good about yourself.
I am a golden god!
A golden god of persuasion, and you will bask in the cash you have conjured to rain upon you. Bring me your questions. I'm ready. Are you?
Winning.